All right, we're live. All right. Thank you all for joining today for this kind of lunch and learn. I've got our head of growth from GrowthHit, Jordan, here. And today we're going to go deep on ads. We did a fun one, I think it was to start the year, around how to think about scaling your ads. And it was pretty well received. And some questions we got was, okay, that's great. You talk about how to scale ads. But what really matters is, how do we actually make creative that converts? So we want to go deep on that, talk about where to start, talk about what makes good creative. And we pulled in some examples from our own brands and our own clients. So we'll get into it. But Jordan, great to see you.
Yeah, likewise.
Even though I just saw you 5 minutes ago because we were
Yes.
on an internal call, but hey, that's all right. See you again. But again, Jordan really runs things over here. And so I'll let her tee up how to think about approaching making good creative.
Sure. We're going to try to give you the most value possible for those getting started in this session. But please know we could talk about this for 8 hours. So with that, this is the agenda that we put together to be most impactful. So first, what assets do you even need? We sort of teased this in the last webinar that we talked about ads, but I wanted to give everyone a really explicit, here's the things to go out and get before you get started. Then we can talk about where to even start, what kind of creative to start testing, how to even think about creative testing, big picture. We'll probably spend the bulk of our time maybe on the winning ads, because this is just super fun. Jim provided some examples. I threw some in the mix. So we'll go through those. And then we have a bonus section that is AI tools for making creative. So buckle up. I think there's a lot of awesome stuff in here.
Gotta have the AI buzzword in everything we do. Okay, so we get this a lot from clients. We're like, okay, what's the bare minimum? Maybe you're like, do I have to do a photo shoot? Do I have to get creators? Do I need to get influencers? Do I have to do editorial shots? Or maybe you're a B2B SaaS product. You're like, I have nothing. You're like, I have screenshots. Jordan, what's the bare minimum?
Yeah, this big shout out to our design team and creative team who helped me put this together. We have worked with brands that have nothing more than a single PNG of a product that they rendered. It's possible, but I will say it's going to be much easier, much faster to start to find some wins with this checklist. So the things that are a must, if it's e-commerce products especially, we need some product photography. 3 to 6 images to get started would be excellent. Obviously, if you have more, amazing. Then we also need the product in use or with a human. So somebody holding it, somebody using your product. If it's apparel, it's pretty straightforward. Somebody wearing it. If it's even a supplement, having somebody with the supplement, super helpful. Bring in that real element into the photography because yes, the AI tools are awesome. And people are starting to realize and pick up, hey, some of these things like don't even exist. So if we can have some photography that really grounds your product in the real world, amazing. And we can do a lot of different things with that. You do need a logo. You need a logo for your page. It should ideally be in vector format, especially if we're going to use it inside of any creative for any reason. And then ideally, UGC, so user-generated content, ideally videos, 1 to 2 images or videos to get started, but I would really say video. And ideal is soft because this can be hard for people to get started with, but truly the earlier you start doing it, the better. It's very painful for people to make it on their own, but even if you make it with your family, something is probably better than nothing, maybe not all cases, but UGC videos, and then lifestyle photography. The team really said, ideally we have 4 to 10. So this kind of overlaps potentially with the product in use, but not necessarily. The product in use could be in a studio or some setting like that, but we want to see the product out in the world and its aspirational use case. And then last extra credit is iconography. So this really is sensitive for our web building teams, the teams that design websites and things like that. But you often want to bring those elements in, those design elements or those icons that are used on your landing pages and your emails and things like that into the ads for a cohesive feel. So we put this as extra credit.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, iPhones are an amazing thing that can go a lot farther than people realize, and even getting in front of the camera that we'll talk about. Okay, so that's helpful on the assets. Also talk about where to work where to get started when it comes to frameworks.
Yeah, so before we even start making ads, I think it's useful to take a step back and think about who are we even talking to? Who is our customer? Maybe there's multiple personas. This is a whole another deep subject in and of itself, but I just wanted to bring up, using some type of value proposition framework. This is an example we use all the time internally. It's deceivingly simple. This is maybe the hardest exercise we have anyone ever do about their brands. I know, Jim, you always bring up that this is really painful, but it really cuts to the meat of the things we need to know to communicate with the world what you do. So dialing this in, and maybe you have multiple pitch formulas for different products or different customer personas, but this would be a great place to start. And then, of course, we also have the growth marketing operating system that I'll give a plug to, because there's a lot of different frameworks in there as well to help you identify your points of differentiation and what types of people you should even be creating ads for, because it's not always you. I think a problem we often see is people just make content that appeals to themselves and does not really reflect or speak to the main customer that they actually have.
Yeah. And I'd say the one main takeaway for this is like, okay, you're like, okay, we're talking about creative. Why are you giving me a pitch formula? It's simple. You want to make creative that speaks to that person. So two big call outs. Who is that person? The more specific, the better. And then this one's hard, but like, what's your true point of differentiation against a competitor or against like a category? If you understand those two things, those should ripple through on your creative. So just want to call that out. And then I think the other big thing is, where are we focusing these ads? How should they work for us? And this is something Jordan's really helped roll out with our clients and our team. But like, these ads can have different purposes. But Jordan, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, some background on how this all came to be is there was a video you sent me 3 years ago. I forget his title, but it was the head of marketing at Truvani, and he was talking about the buyer stages of awareness and how we speak differently to them. I cannot find the video again, so if anyone can find it, send it to me.
Derek Halpern, awesome video. Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like he articulates it really well. And then I kind of combines that with things I learned in the Facebook MBA program with Charlie, as well as my own thoughts and the team's thoughts. So what this is it's sort of a matrix, 3 tiers of the buyer journey. On the far left, we have ads that would be more top of funnel. And this means they're potentially problem unaware. They don't even know that there's a problem at all. And they are certainly solution unaware. On the other end of the spectrum, we have people who are the bottom of the funnel who are solution aware. They are probably actively trying to solve their problem, and they have a specific way to solve that problem in mind. So that's a really condensed version. This is an oversimplification, but I think this spectrum is helpful. So on the far left side, these are going to be ads that are more about scaling and maybe more about reaching broader audiences, new audiences, things that are really getting people in top of funnel. And then on the far right, this is where we're really going to go after people who are already a qualified person. When we talk about like qualified traffic or quality traffic and low quality traffic, I would say more or less the far right of this is more the quality traffic. So when we're first starting, we want to make sure that we are addressing the bottom of the funnel, people who already have a problem, who, you're selling shoes and they want shoes, rather than trying to convince someone who doesn't want new shoes that they need new shoes. That is harder to do. And at the beginning, when you want to start getting things efficient, focusing more on that side of the spectrum is going to get you faster, quick wins. Over time, however, as you start to hit those plateaus, you do need to branch into all 3 of these buckets. So they're not mutually exclusive, but I would say if you have not run ads at all, don't put just ads of little boomerangs of somebody dancing in the aisle of Target near your product, but with no information about what you do, who you serve, or how you do it. Focus instead on, okay, how are we serving people? How do we quickly articulate what we're doing to people and get that conversion rate up? So this is kind of a simplified little mini version, I think, of this framework, but I hope that
Yeah.
helps.
Totally. Yeah. Know who you're talking to and what language to use. Are they informed or not? So that absolutely impacts how you speak to this persona. So it's like, all right, we got our pitch. We know the person, the point of differentiation. We're playing with the language of how to talk to them. Can we nerd out on features? Is it benefits? Is it problem solution? Do we get their attention? Now we're ready to make some creative. Can you talk about like some advice to approach this? So I'm gonna play these so people can see them in action.
For sure.
But yeah, go for it.
So this is from our brand's Neat. This is actually from the first experiment we did on Neat. These are not all the ads. I just took a sampling of them that would fit on the slide. But when you launch a first experiment on Meta and potentially other platforms as well, really focus on visual variety. We don't want all the ads to look the same. You can mix in different other testing elements like different personas or different value propositions and things like that. But hopefully you have a pretty good idea of what is your most successful product so far to start with, who is your main customer so far. If you don't know any of these things, that's okay. But really focus on having some visual variety and things that are meaningfully different. We do not want these ads to all look the same or be slight variations. So for example, that second ad, a definite no on the second ad is if we had two versions and one had a red stripe at the top and one had a yellow stripe at the top. Okay, at some point, maybe that's relevant. I'm not convinced it would be the biggest needle mover, but it could be. Sometimes I'm wrong, but I hope that articulates it. Like when you look at these ads, they all look different. The far left one, arguably maybe more of a top of funnel ad, but we threw it in. This was a bit of a wild card, trying to disrupt the feed and have a different look. But at the bottom, you'll see celebrate with 20% off. It still is trying to really get people to buy quickly. So I think that's what makes it more bottom funnel. The second ad is very feature oriented. We've got like the clear kind of before, after with the sweaty side and the not sweaty side. And then we have two different sort of UGC, the third more true UGC, and then the fourth, well, this is Gem. But yeah, anyway, we've got a good variety in how these are articulating the message of sweat-proof shirts.
Yeah, and there's even more when we test variety because it's like, yeah, and what we have on this next slide is like what not to do. Like, don't just do your first experiment is like copy experiments. That might not be the right move. Sometimes it does make sense, but we don't even know this format works. We don't even know if stills work. We don't know if faces
We
work.
do though. And that's why we did this.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Well, I'm kind of saying hypothetically, if this were our first test, we don't know, right? So we want to start a little bit more aggressive with extremes. But for example, as we promote these events, we have found faces work. We have found that trigger words work. So then we start to get nuance on the testing. But yeah, don't do this out of the gate. Only do it once you've honed in like, hey, this format works. Let's start to iterate.
Exactly. I don't want to say never do this. There's a time and place, but if you're just getting started and all of your ads are basically the same thing with slight variation, it's going to take you a lot longer to start hitting your milestones.
Yeah. And then this kind of gets to that point of finding a format that works. If you're going to do nuanced testing, it needs to really make sense. So you want to call out like the hypothesis behind this one?
Yeah, so these are different reasons people might think they have snoring issues. So, so as we're moving from very bottom of the funnel to more mid funnel, okay, now we're trying to, like, people who are super bottom of the funnel, they know they want a solution, right? You don't need to like tee them up with different considerations they should have around it. This is more mid funnel, right? We've already established the base. Now we're moving on to, okay, are there different ways we can pull people in? So, is the angle that people are tired? Is that a trigger or a problem that people want to address? Do they know they snore and they're not sure why? Or are they waking up with headaches? This is like, are there things that are a little bit higher in the funnel, more leading indicators? We were talking internally recently about leading indicators. These would sort of be some, someone complaining about being tired all the time. Okay, well, maybe they have sleep apnea. They don't know yet, which is different than someone who knows they have sleep apnea and has a problem. they want addressed immediately.
And this can also be looking at ads as almost this research tool to really start to learn things. Again, it's a research tool that is limited because it's just within a platform, so put an asterisk behind it, but it can give you some signals, which could be helpful, which also leads to this idea of not just message testing, but persona testing, really using your creative to hone in on who are those early adopters, those fast followers, or those personas to go after. If you want to hit on this one, Jordan.
For sure. It's a similar thing. Before it was more about the type of messaging, the angle. This is more about the type of person. So on the left example, we have some people with a diagnosis, some people without a diagnosis. On the right example, we pulled the Shopify persona batch, but we had a batch for founders. I can't remember the other ones off the top of my head, but basically we had different customer segments. Oh yeah, they're right here. Amazing.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Oops.
Yeah, so for CMOs, for bootstrapped founders, within some of these winning personas, we then created 4 to 5 very visually different looking ads. And that's that screenshot we were looking at before. So I just want to give people kind of a flavor of, start with a variety of visuals, but then if you want to start to learn specific things or really crack the code on a specific customer segment, then you can start to go deeper. I will say, though, it is not about finding generally the one golden egg that keeps producing for everyone all the time that is infinitely scalable. It does happen that we have some ads that just are such a home run that they will work really well for over a year. But it's more about finding that portfolio of ads. So, okay, what's our primary customer segment? Figure out who that is. Really dial that in. Okay, we feel comfortable with that. That's stable and working well. Okay, who do we add? What's a new angle we can start to dial in? Or what's a new content type to dial in? So it's always iterative. We're never testing things and just leaving it. It is a constant cycling in of new content.
Totally. And it's like finding these breadcrumbs. It's like, wow, stills work well for this, or this persona works well, or wow, UGC works. Let's dig in. And so we'll kind of get into that. So we, again, we saw that UGC started to work for need. And so we're going to dig in. What I'm pausing on here is the opening frame. So this started to work, and now we're like a dog with a bone. Like, okay, let's test this in different ways. Notice how this is a long format, medium, short format. We're then testing the opening 5 seconds because as we all know, that what makes you stop the scroll to get your attention. So it's side by side. It's him running and sweating. It's like, wait, is this guy really about to pour water down his shirt? The long one actually outperformed these other ones, which I would have put money that these were better opening frames, but they didn't convert as well. But that's why you test and iterate to figure out what scales.
Exactly. And this middle one, in hindsight, it's like, oh, this feels very vlog style. There's a lot of content creators that I follow who do like the walk and chat. It kind of has that vibe. So I could totally see that. Again, it's like, I don't think there's one format that is the only format that's ever going to work. I had an ad once that was 30 minutes long. This was years ago, but people who stayed with the video and the people who actually clicked through the video had insanely higher conversion rates. So there is a time and place for different ad formats. In my mind, it's okay, how do we dial in the long form UGC ad that's bottom funnel? How do we crack the code on that? How do we crack the code on the static image that's lifestyle that, I don't know if I'm articulating this very well, but it's like, okay, going into all these different concepts, all these different personas, and just making each one as good as it possibly can be.
Yeah. And notice how we kind of took an ad and chopped it up a few different ways to see what could work the best, right? Because we even had ads that didn't work initially, but I'm like, no, there's something here. And so let me put that once here. Sorry, I hear the audio, so it makes me go a little crazy. But one thing with this one actually didn't work great out of the gate, but then we editorialized it a little bit more with the copy up here to make it much more digestible. And then it just took off, right? And this one actually didn't work initially. And then what we did is we actually took away any of his audio, and we had our creative director do audio and change it to be a woman talking about buying this shirt for her husband, right? So one big takeaway there is like, don't expect to have lightning in a bottle with every ad. Like, you kind of have to iterate your way towards it. Because again, all of these weren't successes out of the gate, but we iterated and tweaked, again, by adding copy and then by changing the persona of a woman talking about her husband.
Mm-hmm. And that's going back to the frameworks. Who's buying?
Mm-hmm.
Are we addressing the problem from the correct lens? Because the content here itself is good. It's pretty good. And we could have just walked away from it and given up. But by rethinking the frameworks, the team was able to find success.
Yeah. And what's funny is we had a really, really handsome model, Tyler, do the water balloon video, and his didn't work. People wanted real people, which that isn't always the case, but we do see it time and time again. And so one last call on this, we just engaged 8 other influencers to kind of recreate this. We're testing an older demo, a younger demo, different sizes. Extra larges sell really well, so we're testing that one. But this is a great one. Jordan, you want to give context on this one?
Yeah, so it's a supplement brand. This example I really like because I think similar to Neat, it's more of a relatable persona that worked. However, on the far left, we have a doctor. So we have tons of UGC testimonials, but some of them are from authority figures, and which can work quite well. And then we have it mixed in with really simple static images that are kind of intriguing. You know, if you constantly have to pee, that just gets right to the point. So this was really a mix of bottom funnel, really focused static images, and lots of UGC content from a lot of different types of people, different personas, different speaking styles, authority figures, people who are more just influencers, huge variety to reach all different women. And this is just some of them.
Yeah, and some of these are better top of funnel to get your attention, like this one, and others are better bottom of the funnel where you're like, oh, okay, wow, they really are like premium, and this one's like speaking to the problem you're solving, right? And like the 100% money back guarantee, very much a conversion focused ad.
Yeah, and pulling in even the stats on how the product performed in clinical trials, that worked well.
Yeah. Very cool. All right, let's go to the next one, which is obviously the best one.
So dogs just work.
Yeah. Yeah. If we could put a big announcement like sell with dogs, babies, brides, kittens, like that's the path of least resistance.
It really is. We need to start a pet accessory brand. Yeah, these are all, this is such a niche. People who own pit bulls, like there's Facebook communities, there's all sorts of online groups around this. And all of these ads, for the most part, address very specific concerns that pit bull owners have. Keeping the dog warm, avoiding like having to comb them because their skin's irritated and anyway, without going super deep into it, these are all very hyper focused on the persona, what their problems are, and speaking directly to it. And then, you know, we've got a cute kind of wild card ad. I melted from the cuteness, so I had to give it 1 star because I melted, you know, just a wild card. But
I love this one. One thing, we don't have an example, but like the text message ad.
Oh yeah.
So we're testing that for Neat. And then I haven't told you this one yet, Jordan. Andre was pitching it to us, but we're testing an ad for Neat where we're intentionally misspelling a word to see if it makes people go crazy in the comments to push the machine learning, which, by the way, a lot of brands would be like, I would never do that. But hey, I like learning, so we're testing it. I know you have thoughts on that.
Years past, there would be ads where there were mistakes in them that got pushed. And it worked really well. And I know I'm not the only marketer who is aware of that or does that. Engagement's engagement for the most part. And if, you know.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, we got a question. Max Silverberg asked, what are your thoughts on providing a free high-value offer to increase click-through? Like, instead of start today to receive your free sleep apnea analysis quiz and get specialized recommendations.
Yeah, so it's sort of a lead magnet. We do it a lot. I think it's a great idea. Even better if you're able to do something that is low cost that people are still willing to buy, that can cover your marketing costs.
Mm-hmm.
That's even better. I think without more context on, is this an e-commerce product? Is this B2B? There's a lot of different ways to go. Yeah, I'd need more information to really dial in what the specific strategy would be. But I do think that's often a really great idea, especially if it's a very high price point, highly considered purchase. If it's a low consideration purchase, it's probably better to just focus on dialing in the conversion optimized ads.
Yeah. And we've seen, like, I'm putting in the example of Jolie did their free water report, right? So you could do a download, a free video series, free email series, a water report, build a tool. Third Love had or still has their fit guide, fit quiz, right? Find your fit. You kind of see how this kicks up. 80% of women wear the wrong bra size, take the quiz. So yeah, Max, those are all great ideas. Okay, what do we have next? Oh yeah, one of our personal favorites. Shout out Louisa and Al Mestiza. What are we selling here with these ads?
You know, these are very aspirational. That continues to work in this sector of fashion. You can do the UGC stuff, but often I find for brands that are more elevated, the aspirational works. On the far left, you know, this ad crushed, and I would not have bet on it necessarily, but it's like, what woman doesn't want to be her?
Yeah.
Relaxed in a beautiful gown on the beach. I think a lot of this, again, goes back to the value frameworks, who we're making ads for, what is their mind state, what is the psychographics, way beyond just, you know, what's in the image itself. But yeah, all of these, I think, kind of call upon that resort feel where, you know, relaxed but fashionable. Yeah, these are just some of my favorite examples, but
yeah, it's got that kind of glossy magazine feel that can get you excited, and then a bottom of the funnel ad could be like a carousel show that gets a little bit more into like the product.
I'd say if you want to use dynamic product ads, but I'll be honest, for high-end fashion, the images do the talking. The more you get into technical specs, that stuff usually doesn't work very well. There's some rare cases I've seen it. A brand like Need is very different.
Yeah, we're D2C. We're not premium like Miss Teaser. We're like sell the dream and I'll swipe my credit card.
And generally, men and women's shopping behaviors are different. So, you know, putting like little annotations of, oh, it's made with this fabric, this and that. I've tested stuff like that on brands like this in the past, and honestly, just beautiful photography that's aspirational, that focuses on the actual product. So all of these, the focal point mostly is the fashion. We're not like getting pulled into, oh, who's this woman? What's her story? Like it's probably easier to see with bad examples, but sometimes photography makes it more about the model and less about the clothes.
Yeah.
So that can be an issue, but these do a really good job.
Yeah, awesome. So we're worth them doing editorial shots for sure.
Yeah.
This is really like, as we kind of made the joke about kittens and puppies and babies.
Food, but not raw meat.
Yeah, food shots can work, especially before and afters, or the process of making something. If it makes you hungry within 5 seconds, you're winning. So those are fun things to kind of play with.
But what I wanted to call out here is we did a lot of messaging testing, and what we dialed in was this problem of people want to be able to make awesome dishes in less than an hour.
Yeah.
Having that numerical call out, that's really why I put this in here. Yes, the food, and we've done so many food brands. I have a lot of opinions on food and ads, but really it's going back to, okay, why do people potentially want cooking classes?
Yeah, time delay gratification is very real, so that's a good one. I put this one in here because we really just wanted to kind of heighten the problem. And like, I think Ogilvy has the quote, if you're selling fire extinguishers, lead with fire. So with Neat, lead with sweat. So half of these are user generated, or we just kind of like our stock photography. This is actually the COO that did this shot, and this is one we scraped from the internet. And so notice how we're testing it in different ways. And the one that worked was actually his. And we were kind of like, why is that? Is that because it's the use case of the button down and presenting? Is it because we're showing a face? And then this one was second because it's very exaggerated. It's kind of more raw and real. But the whole intention here is like, what type of imagery works? Because we really saw it being less professional e-com shots and more authentic and user generated.
Yeah. And that's specific to, I think, this brand, the problem it solves, the persona, and the price point.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, as an aside, this really gives me Arrested Development vibes. The second one, he's like,
it totally does.
You know, and it's the little annotation. So totally unintentional, but.
Oh my God, I haven't seen that show in so long. It's so good. This is one with the brand. We're really, they're trying to figure out the persona to go after. Is there early adopter of this health tech product, dog owners or cat owners? So we kind of did the whole experiment with that in mind, dog personas and cat owners. So you can see it's the same format, but we swap out dog and the cat. The icons on the app are different. And the results were crazy. One of these, maybe I can't say who, crushed the other, and it wasn't the one that I thought. I think that's why you always want to test things, because they're kind of leaning towards one animal, and we're like, oh, let's test the other, and the other one crushed it for them better than the first one.
Yeah, and that header image was used in videos on its own. We got so much mileage out of this, and we did a lot of messaging testing as well. Okay, what is the right problem to focus on? This your pet's health update in 60 seconds. Mm-hmm. Very similar to the homemade example where it's get your meal cooked in under an hour, right? Problem, urgency, and this is articulated super well in Alex Hormozi's value proposition equation, or whatever the name of it is that we use all the time. But the time delay is real. Numbers trigger a very specific part of the psyche. So yeah, there's even just that first image. I think there's a lot to talk about. Yeah,
no, and it really kind of sells what they're going for, so you're not confused, so you're interested enough to learn more.
Mm-hmm. And apps are so hard. Dialing down and making the UI that you show in ads as simple and minimalistic as possible is really important.
Yeah, no, it is so key, and getting it down to that magic moment. Okay, well, I want to show a B2B one that we use. Again, we kind of eat our own dog food, if that's the right phrase to use. Whoops, sorry, let me go back. With our B2B example, and I wanted to pull in the copy as well. And here was the big experiment. It was like, hey, what language do we use around this, right? Do we say, and actually, you know what? I'm going to pull in the Figma. Because we're launching these AI growth services. And we're like, what language do people use? Do they want a growth audit? Do they want an AI growth agent? Do they want a custom GPT? Do we do a little bit of fear mongering and pour salt in the wound? And again, we saw this template start to work. And so as we're doing this, we started to see a certain phrase that started to perform extremely well. And now we've started to do whole different variations on this. We've now found a video ad that works even better than this one. That was kind of our tried and true format. But again, it's these nuanced tests can lead to big wins. So you just got to constantly be iterating, tweaking, learning, and letting those wins compound. All right. And then, okay, that's what we got we got some bonuses. I know we've gone over a little bit on time.
Sorry, Jim.
No, all good. Jordan, any other final comments on ad creative before we get to some bonus AI tools for creative?
Just let us know if you want us to go deeper. You know, we can certainly talk about this subject more if there's a specific industry or a specific stage of maturity that you would like to see. Would love your feedback.
Yeah. And again, we'll continue to show what we're doing with Neat. So This is one tool for videos, Opus Clip, where if you have existing video content, it allows you to easily kind of trim it, cut it up, edit it in a professional way. They've got some other cool features for AI video that's been helpful.
Yeah.
We'll go to this one, Arcades AI. If you have text testimonials that you want to turn to videos, this is a great one. And Jordan and her team have been leading the charge on playing with this. Again, sometimes avatars aren't great. They're creepy. The voices are off, but you can dial it in and it starts to work. I don't know if you want to give any tips or advice on managing this one.
I have very mixed feelings. I do notice some people online, I'll see these videos in the wild, and some people know, and most people don't.
Yeah.
It's a weird place. I think I'm comfortable using real testimonials or real feedback we've received and putting it in. I think everybody really has to make their own decision about how much she wants to leverage these tools or not. And that said, it really disrupts the competitive advantage big brands have, who have huge overhead budgets, who can spend thousands of dollars on a bunch of UGC ads. Do you really think all those people who have tried those products, like they're paid? So it's anyway, ethical considerations aside, it's a very amazing tool. I would say try at least 4 different avatars and different people. Some of them are going to freak you out, and then some of them are going to be very usable.
Yeah. So yeah, something to play with. And then one that we're trying to crack the code on is Midjourney's been obviously not great for apparel brands with like fashion. You want to show the details. This is one we're playing with to do these AI photo shoots where you can actually upload your product and then it can get it on a model and even do videos. The verdict's still out, but it's one that we're tweaking with. That's one that you're working through.
It's really cool. I would say big brands have been doing stuff like this probably for a decade, at least 6 years, to my personal knowledge. It's not really new. What's new, again, is the proliferation and the accessibility to brands of all sizes. So it's very interesting to see.
Yeah, and it's only going to get better, which allows you to move faster to make things. And then we're playing with stuff around AI to be better with ads, with creative, and how we do things. If you ever want to chat about it, hit us up, Jim@growthhit.com. But this isn't a sales pitch. Just letting you know what we're working on. We're just trying to share what we're doing. But again, thank you guys for the time today. For people that took time. And sending some nice stuff in the comments. Really appreciate it. But yeah, we'll come back in a few weeks with more. If you want anything, just let us know. But Jordan, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.